All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we have special guest Blake Johnson. Blake is the owner of Finishing Touches. They are a fix and flip remodel company with over 200. Well, they do over 200 on average fix and flips remodels a year. So he's also been on the fix and flip Fort Worth. So Blake, take it away, man. How'd you get started?
Man, that's a long process. That was it was a long time ago, man. Probably 1999, somewhere around there. I started doing handyman side work for. I used to kind of a funny backstory is I used to run art galleries before this. So
Art galleries?
yeah, so I used to run art galleries, and then just kind of tapped out that market as far as the amount of money that was being made in correlation to what the owners themselves were bringing in. So I was like, well, this kind of at the end of the road there. And I really loved working with my hands, which is why I worked well in those framing pieces of art and doing artwork and doing exhibits and stuff like that. So moved on, started doing handyman work, and then kind of peeled off part-time from art galleries, moving into more handyman, doing work for like friends, families, neighbors, buying Home Depot books and sitting in the front yard of somebody's house with a pile of crown molding around me crying because I couldn't figure out how to do it and I didn't know how to bid the job right. But, that was all friends and family, so they allowed me to learn on their houses. And then I had a friend of mine that lost his job. He got laid off, actually, yeah. And then he basically said, well, I'll just come hang out with you. And I'm like, well, dude, I'm not making money, bro. You need to know this. Like, I don't even know how to bid a job.
He was coming to hang out.
Yeah. He was like, no, I told you I'm going to come hang out. And I was like, well, if you want to come out and learn how to not make money, we can definitely do that together. So he kind of saddled up and we started working together and learning how to do things. And then had a friend of mine, dad was an electrician. And I started getting these smaller jobs, and I didn't hire him, but he came in and helped me out do the electrical portion of it. And these were just really small things. Then I was sitting down one time having breakfast with my wife, sitting at a McDonald's. I remember where the McDonald's was too. It's a funny story. And we were talking about this business because my art gallery business was basically, I was done. I kind of was checked out of that industry.
Yeah.
And was trying to move into this new direction of, working on people's houses, doing stuff like that. And I was like, well, I don't know what direction to go. And then I looked across the street and there was a park bench, like a bus stop park bench. And it said, we buy houses all cash.
Mhm.
And it had a phone number. And I was like, well, if that guy over there is buying houses, somebody's got to fix them up.
Yeah.
So that's me. So, I mean, ignorance is bliss, right? And, I look back at the things I did and the things that I have accomplished, and it's complete ignorant confidence. I mean, just the unbelievable confidence that I look back and go, well, you are an absolute goofball just thinking you could conquer the world. And that's, so I called the guy and, he interviewed me on the phone or whatever. I guess I answered a couple questions right. Then he said, well, I do have a house. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to work. So I went out to meet him at a house in Fort Worth on Christine Avenue over by our new office and had no idea what I was doing. I had no business being there. So I'm sure I lost money on it. I probably ended up, it cost me to do it.
Yeah.
Pretty confident. But then he was like, hey, I got another one. And I was like, damn, it worked. So I did that one. And then I was like, that worked, kind of. So, and at that time, bandit signs were everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I just started getting, every time I'd stop at a bandit sign, I'd write down the name and number and then call them. And then I had a list. I still have the original list. I really should frame it at this point.
Yeah.
The list is probably 40 to 50 people long that I just accumulated, and I'd call them once a week, literally to the point where they knew my name. Now, this was before we had like real caller ID and, technology of cell phones and all that was just coming out to the general masses. And I literally call them every week. And it got to the point where they knew my name, my voice. They're like, Blake, if I get something, I'll call you, I promise. And I was like, okay, well, no worries. Well, I'll call you back next week. And they were like, I know. And it was like every Tuesday and Thursday was my call days. And I just sit down and what's funny is that first guy is still a friend of mine today. Like he still comes to my office and hangs out with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started to build, and those people finally started to go, okay, just leave me, just do a quick call on me, go look at this house. And again, I'd go look at it, not have a clue, underbid it. I'd get the work, I'd learn from it, and then I'd just take that and kind of parlay it to the next. And then I realized these people actually talk.
Yeah.
Like they kind of network out. I was really young figuring this out, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, these people are talking outside of me.
Mhm.
So then I started having conversations with them about their other constituents.
Yep.
And then they started, oh, you're working for that? Yeah. Then, yeah, I know him. And then before you know it, this whole network started to evolve. And I started hiring more people, and it just kind of, here we are.
So I got to ask, because I never would have guessed art galleries. I got to go back to that for a second. How art galleries? Like, were you into art early on, like in your younger years? Like, how did you end up in art galleries in the
Well,
beginning doing that?
so I started off as a warehouse boy at a place called Amber's Arts and Crafts, which I think is no longer around. So Amber's was kind of similar to a Michael's at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working in the warehouse, and then one of the the guys that runs the frame shop there, he had a guy walk out on him, and he didn't have anybody else to fill the shoes. And me and him always talked, so we kind of had this relationship. He was much older than me, but I typically gravitate towards older people anyway,
Yeah.
just by nature. And he was much older than me, and he kind of took me under his wing. And then he said, "Hey, this guy just walked out. I'll ask the manager if you want to, have a promotion and come." And I was like, "Dude, I got to be honest. I don't even know how to read a tape measure."
Mm-hmm.
So I went home that night and told my mom, and she was like, "It's time to learn how to read a tape measure, Blake." And to this day, she took me over to her sewing table and pulled out those 36-inch long, just like a piece of tape, like for measuring material. And she sat down at that sewing table and taught me how to read a tape measure that night. Started there the next day. And the guy that was I was his apprentice, more or less, is the way he viewed me, taught me a lot about art, framing, the world of art and the different levels and qualities and different, how to do different things, frame really intricate pieces of art and do shadow box framing, all this stuff. So then I took all that information and then went to another art gallery. Then I kind of transitioned away from the Hobby Lobby places like that and moved into more galleries because I had enough education, because that guy had a pretty well name in that community.
Yeah.
Because he'd been doing it a long time. So then I took that information and said, well, I was training underneath this guy named Terry. And they said, oh, yeah, we know Terry. So then I had to do some local art stores that just did art and frame only. And then that moved into a gallery setting where I could take that education and move on to a gallery, then kind of move on from there. And
So when you made that transition, because I asked this, because I know there's people that go through that, right? They maybe they build up it could be anything, whether it's they've done something for so long. When you got that point, you're like, okay, I'm burned out and I need to make that change. Like, was it a forced change? Like, where you're like, okay, I no longer, were you like, because some people are forced to change. They're like, okay, I've got to change. Like, I'm out. This is, maybe a loss of clients or stuff like that, or not that exact, but just, was it a forced change or like, okay, I'm just totally burnt out. I got to make that switch. And how'd you make that jump?
I
To
don't
say, man, I got
think
to,
I don't think I was burned out. I don't think I even knew what burned out meant.
yeah.
Like, I was just a kid barely out of high school. I barely got through high school. In fact, it took three of my best friends to get me through high school. And all three of them work for us now. It's that C student,
That's it, man. Hey, I'm the high school dropout. Hey, I get it. I get it.
It's that CD student. Those A students work for those C students.
I believe that, though.
There is some truth in that. And, love them, the ones that are still with me today and working with us. But yeah, I don't know that I really knew what burned out was. I had no career path. I had no direction. I probably should have joined the military, but that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of bouncing around. And then once I landed at these art places and started getting the education, and it was like, man, there's something to this. Like, I can actually make some okay money. I was making more money than most kids that had full-time jobs that were doing and going to college in this. So I just kind of stuck with it. And then once I realized, I think at that last gallery, that there's really nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, there's nowhere to go. I might as well just start doing something different and just see how it goes. I mean, again, like I said, I had that ignorant confidence that I could just, it's funny because just down the street from one of the galleries was a Simply Fondue that was being built. And God, the amount of confidence is unbelievable. I had been reading enough Home Depot books to learn how to do trim work, like carpentry and trim. And I've been farting around enough with my house, mom's house, aunt house, uncle's house, mother-in-law's, neighbors, whatever, that I felt pretty good about what I was doing.
Yeah.
I had no clue what I was doing, by the way. So I went out of the art gallery, walked across the street, down the sidewalk to Simply Fondue, who was just getting built. And I said, hey, I'd like to give you a bid to do all your trim work for your restaurant, which I had no business doing, none. And he was like, okay, well, let's walk around. So we walk around, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And then he's like, well, what's the name of your company? And I was like, Finishing Touches. That's what we do. We do the finishing touches. And that was literally
how it was born.
That was it.
That's it.
And Simply Fondue going, I wish I knew his name. Thank you for not giving me that job that day.
Yeah.
But
So later that day, you went and registered the name. Like,
yeah, basically, I came home and I said, hey, I started a business today. My wife goes, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, we're Finishing Touches. And then I went and she went and got, after she fell out, because she said, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You don't even, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I don't know. I guess we're going to see. But I still have the T-shirt. I went and got one of those iron-on T-shirts and made a T-shirt with an iron-on
awesome.
with a patch that says like finish. It's just so hokey, dude.
That's awesome. But that confidence, I mean, that comes from, like you said, you barely made it out of high school. Usually people that have that, they almost have like a confidence. I don't want to say because it's not too stupid to know any better, but you just don't really care. You're like, you'll go get it, right? I mean, you're not like, you're not overly educated to the point where you're like, I'm stuck.
No,
You're like,
go. Okay, let's go.
Let's go figure it out. I like that. Finishing Touches just comes from Cheesecake Factory or the Simply Fondue.
Yeah.
Let's go. So I know you've one of the questions I've had, I've always wanted to hear, and I know this is fast forward, so we can rewind here in a bit, but you did fix or flop.
Oh, it was flip or flop.
Flip or flop on Fort Worth. So, man, I want to hear about that. What was it like going through that, just kind of being a part of that show and like,
I'm going to censor a lot of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
I probably should. Yeah. I mean, all of our contracts are clean now, where everything's done and gone, but there's no reason to air some dirty laundry, so to speak.
Right.
But it was one of the more challenging things that we've done as a company, not as an individual person for my personal growth or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
but as a company, it really stretched us and put us as hardcore as it could have gone. And part of the reason is, you watch these shows, and there was 13 episodes that were filmed, but you watch these shows at home and they're 30-minute episodes, and you watch it once a week and it comes out. All 13 of those were being filmed at the exact same time. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not like you're doing, and they're doing it over like an 8-week period.
Damn.
It is super intense, and the production budget is low. So they are it's skeleton crews everywhere. Everybody's chasing everybody around. Like, where's the next problem? There it is. Okay, get in the truck, go there, drive. Don't touch that problem until we get there. But once we get there, touch the problem, and then we got to fix it.
So you could have a leak going on. They're like, "Don't fix it. We gotta get the camera crew on it."
Correct.
And it's just flowing and like,
yeah.
You can. So if you did this shit during the freeze,
Yeah.
you were like, "Wait a minute, wow."
Yeah. So it was very, and we were managing up to like 100 people.
Yeah.
In one day. So it was every morning and every evening was very intense meetings with production and camera crews and film crews. And then every evening having to update them. I mean, we're talking 16, 17-hour days for no pay. So
no pay at all.
Not for the grunts. No. I mean, the talent is what they call them and those are air quotes.
Yeah.
Is paid something. They're compensated, but I think we got like $100 a day, maybe.
You guys, as like individual working, whoever.
No, the company.
The company, $100 a day. Wow, that's crazy. So let me ask this: How does someone end up? How did you guys end up on the show, or how did you guys end up? How'd you guys end up on the show? Like, did you know someone that was like, hey, or were you working with an investor that already kind of like, how did that?
Well, I was working with an investor, and the investor was approached by a producer
Mm-hmm.
when they were actually in Tahiti or something. They were talking and they approached him. And then, he came back here to the States and said, "Hey, there's an opportunity for this. You're the biggest dog on the block. Can you handle it?" And I'm like, there's that confidence. You bet your ass I can. I can handle anything.
Yeah.
So we went through the interview process and then all that went well. So then they basically, the thing is, looking back, and we've had post-mortem meetings about that whole thing, like with production. But there's no pre-mortem meeting, meaning there's nobody warning you for the wave that's coming.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, y'all get geared up. The camera crews show up in 10 weeks and y'all need to get started. And here's the houses. Here's the projects, and y'all start moving. Well, they don't bother to give you some of the nitty gritty. It's just kind of a given, you learn as you go type of situation, but it's really, really intense.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense. It was.
That's crazy, and they just don't pay. There's no compensation, so that's all.
Well,
So
they
does that
leverage the concept that, well, you'll be on national television.
Yeah.
You're going to get business out of it. You get notoriety, recognition. You can put HGTV on your all of your artwork.
Mhm.
And that's kind of their carrot in front of the ass.
Yeah.
The dumbass.
Yeah. So do you feel like, you don't have to go deep into it, but do you feel like it's been beneficial in the long run as far as what they offer to say, hey, it's worth doing, or was it like,
Well,
lost out on some?
To keep it very simple,
Yeah.
they've called back 3 times and asked to do different shows for different networks, like production companies, and I won't do it.
Yeah.
So, that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, if you're, like you said, you're doing it all 13 different projects in.
Well, and I'm running a normal business too,
Yeah.
on top of that, which had probably another 25 on the ground.
So that required you. So doing that, you were required, not by them, but just by what you needed to get done. You had to hire more people.
Oh yeah.
Like, you had to scale fast.
Yeah. In fact, it got to the point where, and none of that was discussed prior.
Mm-hmm.
So it got to the point where I basically just stopped production, and that really sent shockwaves to production when I'm like, they're like, where are the people? I don't know.
Yeah.
There's, these houses are bid with X amount of dollars. Let's call it, an $80,000 project that should take 10 weeks, but you want me to consolidate that to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That takes a lot more manpower. So these parts of this education process weren't disclosed to me or the talent on the show. We didn't really realize that was going to be compressed. Like, those timelines were so compressed. We weren't aware of that at the time. So basically I just said, we got to figure something out. So they had the head guys fly into town, which they weren't happy to have to stop what they're doing, but basically they had to stroke a check for X amount of dollars to get more resources to get the jobs done.
Yeah.
That was the only option. It was kind of weird because we were standing in the middle of one of the houses, and the guy was just like, well, how much money is it going to take to get it done? I'm like, guys, we're putting 13 houses on the ground in what should take 10 weeks a house. That's a long time. You want to consolidate that and compress it down. It's going to be, in the probably maybe almost the six figure mark to get it all done and to meet the deadlines that we need to meet. So we all came to terms, and then once we amped up, it got better, because then we could actually meet the production needs. But until then, it was pretty intense trying to run around. Because, we're one of the larger rehab companies in the Metroplex, and we run a pretty good staff, and we know how to scale and do all that, but it couldn't match what
they needed.
Yeah.
At the time. That's crazy. Your guys still got paid. You guys, they were still getting paid, but you guys as a company were getting nothing for it. You just got a notoriety and recognition, and that was it. So that's it would make sense to say, no, I don't want to do that again. The amount of stress that would come on.
It took a year to recover from it.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, and the time it took away from my family and just other stuff. But it's just not worth it.
So what about on the investor side? Did you see anything on there? Did they already have the houses lined up? Were they just like, all right, we went and bought all these and we're sitting on them and waiting?
We were buying them, or they were buying them literally 5 days before we were supposed to show up with cameras.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it a matter of, see, I had heard this from someone, or through the grapevine, from someone who they were the investor, the talent on a show. and the producers were saying, you just need to buy more, hurry up and buy more. It's like they were pressured or pushed.
Was this specific show the one I was on, or a different one?
Not yours, but I'm saying it was another reality show. There's a that they have, like, basically the same type of show, and the producers are pushing the talent. Like, you've got to hurry up and buy another property.
And the numbers don't matter.
That's what I was going to ask. So did it even matter? The numbers even matter at that point? They just needed you to buy
the house. I need content.
That's crazy, man. So they're having to, and the investors come out of their own pocket with that.
Well, they're buying it through normal, but hard money lenders things like that.
Right. Yeah. But I'm saying if the numbers don't match, the investor's going to walk away
losing
money. So versus wow, that's crazy. It looks one way on the outside, right? That's why I ask these questions, because on the outside you look at it and you like. I know it doesn't take that long. I mean, it doesn't take that. It's not fast to do it, but someone who's never been involved with, busted pipes and all those things, they're like, oh, that was so pretty. But I always wonder, I'm like, those numbers actually match up. Something seems a little off here. They seem pushed, a little too much. Somebody's got to be losing something somewhere.
I'm not going to answer that, but they were just needed to buy the houses. We needed to have 13 houses on the ground, ready to go. Cameras are running.
Yeah.
That was kind of it.
Yeah. So were they planning on, I mean, not to get too deep, but just were they, because it was only, 13 episodes, that was it. After that was just everybody like, hey, we're done with it, or?
Well, no, it ran the course, and they looked to see if it was going to do a season 2, and then everybody would renew, and that's supposedly the way it works, is that's when you actually start making money, is season 2. Season 1 is almost a very large pilot.
Gotcha.
And then, but our Flipper Flop Fort Worth went up against Flipper Flop Memphis or Mississippi, one or the other, and it was a divorced couple, but they were still in business together.
They argued more.
Yeah, and it just
Drama.
that kind of took that one kind of won out.
Yeah,
of the two.
Yeah, you had someone arguing more, and they're like, you know what? That's a great concept.
Got more drama. Yeah.
Yeah. These people don't like each other, but they're still working together. That's all. That's crazy. So I want to talk scale, because obviously you have gotten it down over the course of years to be able to scale. Can you share some of the things and maybe some of the troubles you've gone through, as far as, because I think that's where a lot of people get into business and they almost work for themselves, and that's literally who they work for over and over every day. Whereas like yourself, you've gotten to a point where, and Robin has always said this, he's like, Blake has got it down. He's like, this was Robin's last conversation. I don't know what he's got. He's got a huge warehouse with just a bunch of stuff ready to go. He's like, but he's, so, and I always love the conversation of scale, because that's something that, I know we've experienced in martial arts. There's certain vehicles are just hard to scale, whereas others, property management, real estate, it's easier to scale. There's more plug and play. So at what point, how long did you go where you're working kind of for yourself, and, before you said, you know what, I'm going to just go ahead and start scaling this thing out?
I would say I probably started scaling it out within the first 3 years.
First 3 years.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Kind of the beginning stages of that, the first, 1, 2, 3 years.
Well, I wasn't really, I don't want to say I wasn't a businessman, but I guess I wasn't really. I didn't understand economy, like economics, from the perspective of, I only had like 5 customers at the time.
Yeah.
So what I was doing, which is my wife was making, she was off doing her own thing, and I was kind of doing my own thing, and we'd come home in the evening and really try not to talk about work a whole lot. But I had to end up on a quick panic, had to end up firing my front house assistant. She was basically the office manager. Had to fire her, so my wife had to come in. She was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I didn't go to business school. Nobody taught me anything. So I'm just doing what I think. And she was like, "Okay, you have 5 customers?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "You open up a bank account for every customer?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "So you have 5 checkbooks?" I said, "Yeah, I write 5 checkbooks, and each job is its own account, and I just pay it like that." And she was like, "Oh my God. You've got to learn how to, this money all goes into one pot." And I was like, I can't comprehend that. That's beyond my comprehension, because this customer is paying this much and this one's this much. And she was like, "This is so antiquated. What are you doing? How are you even managing?" I don't think we are, which is why I just fired her. And that's why, kind of why you're here now. It didn't work, but I don't know how to make it work.
Yeah.
So she came in and had to clean up all that, and then I started to realize that, based on that there's more clients, and it started to evolve, and then I started really learning how to scale better and learning how to systemize our products and our plans. So everything just kind of, okay, so if it's $150,000 house, this is the package for that house. It's $200,000 house. So anything 100 to 150 gets this package. 150 to 200 gets this package. Here's the 200 to 250 package. And basically I kind of in a way just created that model, and then basically said, you as the investor are not allowed to deviate. If it's worth $250,000, that's what it's going to look like. That's it. And keep your hands out of the cookie jar. Yeah. Let me do my job, and you'll do yours, which is make money. You're not here to pick out light fixtures. You're here to go negotiate the next transaction and figure out go search. What makes more sense for you to be out researching cheaper hard money, or going out to Home Depot and Lowe's and chasing down light fixtures? It's a pretty simple sell to an intelligent person. Yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So that's where the scalability came in. It's like, I kind of realized that if I took control, because I'm a control freak anyway. So if I took control, they would let me have it as long as they had the faith in my control. Right. So once I taught them or showed them that the system works, then it just becomes wash, rinse, and repeat it.
I like that. So instead of where most people, when they hire someone, it's like, okay, I want this, and they, we got to do this, or we got to do that, and then most of the time it's never a, like, it's never a, it's this, it like changes, like, there's a little adjustment, like this person might bid this. You guys are like, look, it's a package. Like, you built it out as a package. I said, this is the way we're doing it. Yeah. This is what we offer. Here it is. Yep. And so that's scalable. But absolutely. But the other way around, where, if you've got someone who, who's a Hector or a George, and, they're the subcontractor, and they're just kind of doing it on the side, you can't scale that. They'll never be able to scale beyond themselves. But you're able to do that because you packaged it out.
Yeah. So, and I also kind of, I teach a lot of classes now to real estate investors, new ones, seasoned ones, this, that, and the other. And one of the things I learned early on in the business was the first thing you do when you walk up to a customer is, if you're going to ask them what they want, you're there, or my job as Blake at Finishing Touches, I'm there because you don't know what you want. So it's my job to tell you what you want. So I usually play a game with them, and it works, but it works only because we've also got 25 years of experience under our belt to go with. But basically, I tell you what, because they always start off, and it's usually the newer investors, they always start off with the same thing. They always start off with, well, this is what me and my wife are thinking. I'm like, okay, let's just stop the train right there. Let's play a game. Why don't I tell you what I think, and then you tell me how close I am to what you think? And then they usually get a little offended. Now they're put out with me. And they're like, oh, this guy's just a jackass. He thinks he's, Mr. Know-It-All walking up here in his blue shirt, blue eyes. I'm like, well, let's just play the game, okay? Let's just humor me for a minute. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And then I walk them through, and then I actually kind of play like a cat playing with a mouse. I kind of like, okay, let me guess. We're taking this wall out. We're going to open up this kitchen. Open concept, is that it? Yeah. Oh, okay. So let me guess. You want to do like a light gray wall color with wood that looks like that on the floor, and some granite countertops with white shaker cabinets. Let me guess. And by then now they've kind of got past it, but I don't do it so sarcastically. I'm doing it sarcastically here for the value of the show. But, and by the time you walk them through the kitchen, everybody's really kind of on the same page. And like, okay, yeah, he's actually hit everything and more than what we wanted. So by the time we're done, they're basically like, okay, you clearly know the scope of work, so why don't you just create the scope of work? I'm like, well, that's what I planned on doing, whether you were here or not. So, and then a lot of investors now that we do a lot of work for, like the repeat clients, they just email us the address and the combination and the ARV and say, go. And that's just how it works.
It's just done.
I enjoy it. I love our out-of-state investors. Yeah. They don't, I have stickers that I think Robin hands them out at a lot of events. It says, it's not your house, it's your investment. And those stickers I always hand out to every event, everywhere we go, because it's so true. And people, they watch the HGTV shows and they do this and they got to have a barn door because their house had a barn door, or they just remodeled their bathroom and they put that really cool exhaust fan that's Bluetooth speakered with an exhaust fan and a disco light in it. And it's like, we don't need any of that in this rental property. We're just doing nice, neat, and functional. And a lot of times the new investors, and sometimes even the seasoned ones, they need that. They need that. What's the right? That push.
Mm-hmm.
Or, to get them away from trying to make it so custom and cost money to get down to brass tacks and what really works.
Yeah.
That's what they need a lot of.
Makes sense though. I mean, to take, because that's something that, I mean, there's so many people that are contractors, right? This guy's a contractor. I know but you just said, hey, you made it scalable because of the packaging, because the way you approach it.
Right.
And that makes perfect sense. I never would have thought about that. Just that, to scale it that way, to say it's a package and that's it.
Yep.
I know for me, I hate doing when we have to go through certain, we're not going through tons of rehab, but just even floors and stuff. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that, honey. You can deal with that.
So if you stacked up, let's say last year's houses,
yeah,
you put them all in a row, 80% of them would look identical. Mm-hmm. Same floors, same wall paint, same light fixtures, same cabinets, same cabinet hardware, same bath accessories. It's exactly the same. The only difference is they're all over the Metroplex, so you have no idea that they're all the same. It's the truth.
That's awesome. So you get to see some of the trends too at some point when someone says, no, Blake, we don't want to go gray anymore. We want to go this, and then you start.
Yeah. So is gray out now?
Yeah.
What's the new one? Well, I was gonna ask.
Well, Sherwin-Williams just released their new color, which I don't know how much that's going to affect it, but it's definitely more. It's a weird. It's like if you married blue and gray and they had a baby.
Kind of like a
no, honey, it's not happening. We have gray in the house.
Yeah, it's taupe was kind of kicking gray out. Like I really like taupe.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if Sherwin-Williams' new color will stick or not, but I would say we've moved from grays into taupes and more warmer, earthy colors.
Do you ever see the year start here, and then by the time you're done, you're like, it's these colors now?
It's usually not a year. I mean, see, keep in mind that I'm in a different world because I work mainly for investors. I don't work for a lot of homeowners.
Right.
So the homeowners are usually more up and up on the latest, coolest, hippest things because they're all watching, Chip and Joanna Gaines, HGTV, all this crap that I hate. So they know more. So what happens in the investor, what happens in the homeowner world usually takes a year or two to hit the investor world for a regular rehab. Now, if we're doing, like I've got a house we're doing right now that once it's fixed up, it'll sell for $1.4 million, give or take. Mm-hmm. So that one's going to be custom, paint colors, custom, all that type of stuff. But for like the regular cookie cutter, $250,000, $300,000 homes, we're still into the gray thing.
Yeah.
Into the, we're doing we're doing a couple where we're doing white walls and white trim, which is, I personally don't like it, but people seem to like it. I don't really care for it.
That's a question. Out of all the stuff you've done, what is it? What's some of your favorite stuff? Color wise, like if you were to do your own, do you kind of stick with some of the same stuff you guys are already doing? Are there certain colors and stuff that you like to?
Like for my personal?
Yeah, your own, like, because you see so much, you know what I mean? It's like, most people, like, you do it all the time. You see it. Do you kind of lean towards some of the same stuff, or personally?
My personal stuff looks nothing like our business model.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. It's like completely opposite.
Color wise and stuff.
Everything's completely opposite.
Yeah.
Painting his house orange.
It's nothing like what we do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Just because I live it.
Yeah.
It's like, my kids who are a little older now, they couldn't understand why I wouldn't let the dogs and animals in the house. Like, why can't the cats come in? Why can't the dogs come in? Every day of my life, I smell cats and dogs and rat piss in houses, and I hate. I can walk in and smell it instantly, and it just makes me angry because I'm like, I can't believe people live like this.
Yeah.
So that's I just don't. I live it, so I don't want it at home.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's why I asked, because it just, I know, like for me doing jiu-jitsu all these years, like you don't do jiu-jitsu, like you don't watch anything. I'm like, no, I don't. It's just I don't enjoy it as much. It's like I do it all the time. Something you do all the time, you don't enjoy it. That's why I asked, like, I'm sure your house looks different, but what's your favorite? Because it's probably not what you're doing.
Right.
So I want to ask, can I move? You talked about that the cats and the dogs, and man, one of the questions I want to ask is one of the most memorable rehabs you've had to go through, or could have been a challenge, could have been, what's something that sticks out in your brain? You're like, man, that was a rehab.
Probably, well, man, they're all, I mean, we've done some things over the last 25 years that I look back at. I got things right now on the books I'm looking at going, I cannot believe we're in the middle of this. This is, how did we land here? How did we
Yeah.
get 4 years ago? I drove by that house and laughed my ass off at that condition and thinking somebody wants me to buy that. And now I'm rehabbing it. How gross. But it's just the market. The market's where it is. But if you're asking me for like my top two or
Your top 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you.
the first one that comes to mind is probably one of the most nastiest ones. We had a house it was a hoarder house, and she had a lot of cats, like probably 20 cats, maybe. She died in the house with no friends or family here. So, yeah.
Nobody checked on her.
All the cats ended up dying too
Oh,
Yeah.
after they ate whatever they could find.
They'd been there a while.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then once we opened the door, the smell of cat urine, feces, rotting cats, freezers that had been unplugged or like electricity turned off for like 6-7 months at a time, just everything rotten in there. We literally opened the door, and I still have a picture of me and the appraiser. We both had on, this was back before COVID, and we actually had like full-blown respirators on.
Yeah.
Not because of COVID, but because the stench was so overwhelming. We literally opened the front door, back door, all the windows, and I kid you not, within like 10 minutes, there were buzzards flying over the house.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty, man.
So she's in there. So she passed away and was just sitting there for 6-7 months.
Yeah.
And nobody.
There's no wellness checks or anything.
Was there? I mean, when you walked up to the door, was there a smell, like or not? Like there's a house that I remember that they had all these cats, and it's kind of near one of our
from
rentals,
outside.
and it's just you could smell it from outside. So
If you're at the front door, you could, yeah.
but even from the sidewalk,
Not really. It was pretty contained. It was nasty, man. It was
crazy.
really bad.
Wow, man, I couldn't imagine that. You just have to, and then how long that take a while? Obviously, took a while to clean up.
Yeah, it was 6 ozone machines, metallic base commercial paint, primer. It took removing entire rooms of sheetrock and extracting the insulation from the walls and the ceilings. It was a mess.
Yeah. What about the investor challenges that you come across? Some of the things that you come across, maybe investors that you see a lot that are some of the most challenging things that they deal with, just as far as rehab and remodel. Any advice that you give or anything you come across, like, man, that's something we see all the time.
I told you so. Just listen to me.
Yeah.
No, the biggest challenge is for newer ones. I'd say the seasoned ones get it, but the newer ones is just follow the model. It's already been cut out, and not just me, but like if you get plugged into networks like Robin's group or the other DFW groups that are around, just get plugged into those and start networking with people and follow them. Go if they're doing a house, follow them. Ask them if they can go to the house with them and learn. That's the meat and the potatoes of it right there. It's not just watching YouTube videos. You got to get out there and get your feet wet and really try to learn it.
Yeah.
And then I think taking that first step is probably the biggest one that they always sit on the sidelines. Oh, I'm going to invest and I'm just waiting for the right deal. There's not a right deal.
We see that a lot. Yeah, guys join the real estate club and they just kind of hang out. They never really make
It's a social club.
Yeah. They never really actually make that jump and invest.
Well, and
in
there's
things.
timing too. Like right now is not the greatest time. You got to get deep deals with interest rates and stuff right now. So that I still have a lot of clients that are selling houses right now, though.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's a question. So kind of right now, what do you see? Because 2020, the last few years, what's kind of changed for you guys business wise? Anything as if y'all did you have to scale up, at a certain time or scale down, just in terms of the market, being the interest rates.
I think
and
if
stuff.
anything, we've probably scaled down a little
Yeah.
just because, there's not as majority of our business is investors, but we're doing some weird things right now that we wouldn't have done like say 3 years ago that we're doing to kind of we're experimenting. Like we've got an apartment complex we're doing for a client right now. I normally used to not do multifamily because I didn't need to or want to.
Yeah.
But, things are changing and we got to make sure we change with the things. We can't stick around and get blockbustered.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
That's a great analogy I like to use.
Literally blockbuster.
Yeah.
I invested in that, by the way.
Sorry if I opened up any old wounds there.
That was my first stock to ever invest. I was like, they got on the TV and Jim Cramer had sold me on the idea. I was like, yeah, it was like $20-$30, but and then they got blockbustered.
Yeah. So that's the analogy I like to use a lot is, you just get blockbustered. You get so tunnel visioned and so focused on your business and what's working for you that you don't look up and realize Netflix has just destroyed you within 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they just didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
They didn't. In fact, there was even interviews, if you go back and watch, there's interviews where they were like, what is this streaming stuff you're talking about? Like, we have brick and mortar, and Netflix just snuck up on them, didn't see them coming, and then all of a sudden, boom, they just completely destroyed them.
I remember the first time I returned a DVD with a friend. They're like, come with me. Let's go to Albertsons.
In the little plastic case?
Yeah, let's go to Albertsons. And I was like, what the fuck are we doing? They're like, we got to return the DVD. I'm like, what is that? And then after
This is
that,
like grocery store.
I used to walk by the red box. I used to walk by the red box, and I was like,
well, if you remember
Like,
too, they
huh?
were delivering them to you.
yeah, they delivered to.
You go online. I guess we go online. I don't even remember. How did we order them?
It started online. Yeah, I
So we
remember
could
that
go
too.
online and order a movie, and they would ship it to you in a little package with an envelope
Mhm.
that you would ship it back to them. And if
Yep.
you didn't ship it back within like 10 days or something,
Mhm.
then you bought it.
And then Redbox came out, and then Redbox took off for a little bit, and then 2020 came in and just fucked it up. It's like, no more Redbox. I think they took them out.
No,
didn't they?
there's still a couple.
Yeah, there's still some.
But they're definitely not. I mean, the streaming is just crushing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this whole thing
Even
about
with
cutting the
movies.
cord, we just put a different cord.
Yeah.
That's all we did. We changed, instead of it being, it used to be the old cable cord, which everybody's like, cut the cord, cut the cord. Well, now we're streaming every different platform, and it
Yes.
costs you 3 times as much.
Yeah.
And you have a new cord. It's called Ethernet.
She's laughing for a reason. She's
Yep.
like, I got Paramount, I got
Yep.
this,
Yep.
I got
I
that.
had to end up getting NBC and all that because Hulu stopped showing those shows.
We were
and-
the first one. We were in the early stages of cutting the cord too,
yeah,
as well.
2011.
Yeah, we cut
Yeah.
the cord really early, and then eventually went back to. And then next thing you know, because that was really weird to do that. Like, but you're right. I mean, it does go with that blockbuster thing. Like every business can get that. They
Mhm.
can just end up obliterated, and you see it all the time. Every business at some point
Technology.
just goes kaputs.
Yep.
How are you liking the multifamily? Is that something you say it's kind of experiment with? You guys enjoy it? Do you?
Well, I do single family and multifamily up to like quadplexes. This is like 18 units, so it's nothing really too big.
Yeah.
But it's the worst multifamily unit you could probably do. Like the people won't move out. Like we're having to force it. Like they told us yesterday there was 3 different tenants that were in there, and they said the only way we're leaving is by handcuffs.
Did you show up with some handcuffs?
Not my job.
All right. I'm going to hand you these, and you can just walk out. You didn't say I had to
We
put
could
them
make
in
it
you.
simple, yeah.
I can just give you a pair.
I mean, we've cut the water off. We've almost cut the electricity down to nothing. And when we're there working, we turn on the loudest Tejana music we could possibly play and set the speakers right in front of their door. So it's like we're trying to do some Guantanamo Bay stuff on them a little bit. And they just won't. They don't have anywhere to go.
Your next step's waterboarding. You
Yeah.
just- they have to cut the water line at the top and it just sprays down. You're like, you guys are going to drown eventually.
So that particular apartment unit has its challenges. It really does.
So that was my next question, kind of on the challenge part. What do you see different in terms of renovating the multifamily versus like the single family? Like, what are some of the things that you see?
I think it would be easier if the apartment itself was easier.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it would be nice because you got multiple doors and you can just move one crew from one unit to the next to the next. I understand why. It's just I've never really I think part of the problem, maybe I blockbustered myself a little bit because for me the allure of single family homes
Mm-hmm.
it was one stamp and one done. Here it's like it's 18 bids, but they're all basically the same. So you kind of have to do the economy of scale. That apartment may be a little bit worse, so it may require a little bit more, but you also can't spend the time to nitpick that apartment versus the one over here that's not okay. So you can't do 18 individual bids. I mean, you could, but my God, you'd spend an exorbitant amount of time. And I always had a hard time getting my head around that, around just going, okay, here's 20 units, all the single bed units are X, all the 2-bed units are Y, and the 3-bedroom, 2-bath units cost this.
Yeah.
Well, what if one of them's completely destroyed and the other one's not? Well, it averages out. I just can't. I've had a hard time getting my head around that for a very
That
long
makes
time.
sense. You're trying to figure that makes sense.
'Cause
Trying
I'm-
to figure
I
out how
was-
to package it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I was trying to figure out how to package it because
That
I'm coming from that world where everything was single family done.
Yeah. That way you can actually scale it, because if you can't package it, it's hard to scale it.
For me, in my mind, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But if it wasn't for the challenges, that would be a very easy. That'd be if it
I-
wasn't for the tenants needing handcuffs.
If it wasn't for this specific one needing handcuffs and the squatters that won't leave and they constantly break in and steal stuff, yeah.
So do you, as far as rehab and stuff, how on average, how long do you guys usually take, or how long can you usually expect? Like some of the investors, like, hey, here it is. You mentioned 10 weeks. Is there a certain time frame you guys like, hey, we try to knock it out in X amount of time, or?
It depends on the involvement. I've got some investors that are heavily involved
Mhm.
and they just eat up time. They take a lot of time because they are constantly on the job trying to do some of the work themselves and save them some extra bucks. It ends up just costing time.
Yeah.
Or then we've got the other ones that are completely hands off that just say, just handle it. And those usually go faster.
So that brings me to this one. So my mom, as much as I love her, I feel like she's the contractor's worst nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to hear this from somebody else, somebody who's in the business, because I always tell her, I was like, Mom, stop doing that. You're just pissing them off. And tell me if I'm wrong. But she'll go behind and work behind them all the time. And she's always in the middle of stuff. You'll have someone go fix something and she comes back behind it with some spackle or some other shit. And you're like, Mom, just leave them alone. Let them do their job. Is that one of the most annoying things you guys
Yeah,
ever
that's
do?
horrible. I wouldn't want anything to do with that.
Put that as a reel.
So one of the things,
I like, because that's something that I tell her all the time. I'm like, because she's like, she'll start out and she's like, I love this person and they're doing a good job. But I'm like, but then she goes and works behind him. I'm like, Mom, stop fucking working behind him. Like,
Yeah.
and then she's like, they're not doing this and they're pissed off. Well, no wonder they're pissed off, because they want to deal with someone like myself who's like, just go do the job. I don't want to mess with it.
yeah, no, that's by the grace of God, I'm at a point in my life now where when we run into those people, we literally just fire them.
Yeah.
We're just not a good fit anymore.
Yeah.
And then I usually can read that before, because I'll sit down with like you guys at the house and I'll say, okay, so who's the boss? Who calls the shots? Where's the weird brother-in-law or sister-in-law that lives out of state that comes in town once a year, and they're coming in town this weekend and they have a construction company in Philadelphia and they're going to come in town in 3 weeks, and you're going to bring them over here Sunday after brunch and mimosas, and y'all both going to be liquored up, and y'all going to walk to the house and he's going to tell me how bad everything is. Where is he at and when is he coming? Because I got to get done and gone before he shows up.
Yeah.
And that's, if we have those conversations and I can feel like there is the mom in the background or something,
Mm-hmm.
we'll just not do the work. It creates a lot of extra stress and turmoil that, as a production company, meaning we're producing a lot of houses.
Yeah.
And something like that can really slow down the cogs in the wheel and really and I've got one right now that we're doing the exact same thing. This particular individual is complaining about the timeline on the project, but yet she has 2 projects. One she has another contractor doing, and then one we're doing. The one that the other contractor's doing is right around the corner from our office. It's a $225,000 house. The other one is in a different county and is worth probably $450,000. So she's babysitting it. She's there every day, constantly working on it, constantly doing something to it, trying to improve it, trying to make it better, but ends up at the end of the day hurting herself.
Yeah.
Because of the timeline.
Yeah.
So
Makes it harder.
Yeah.
See, I've always said it's her standards, like, because we're talking, we own a rental property with them, and I'm like, Mom, it's not the same standards. Like, this isn't your house. Our house looks like Martha Stewart. Like, it's like
She
works on
needs
it.
the sticker.
Yeah.
It's not your house, it's your investment.
Right. Yeah. I've had to go through that so many times, and she'll just come back to the house and be like, to our house, and be like, just frustrated. I quit. I'm done. I'm not working. I'm like, Mom, it's not.
Just write the check.
Let's just write the check. Like, we don't need to do all that. I don't like picking that stuff out. I don't like picking out floors. I don't want to pick it. To me, I'd rather hand it off. You usually do a lot of that, but you're not. You usually like call me if you need something. It's not the way. So,
Yeah,
but I've always told
we
her.
haven't really had to do full remodels. It's just changing out a few things.
Yeah, but I've always told her, like, you got to stop following people. This isn't your house.
Yeah, no. She needs a sticker. I'll be more than happy to.
We're gonna mail you a sticker, Mom. We're gonna give you a sticker.
Sounds like she might need 2.
Yeah, she needs 2. She's got 2 houses that she doesn't too. I mean, it's just one of those things. I've never asked that question of someone who is in the business, but I've always suspected this is your problem.
She runs contractors off.
Yeah, of
Runs
course
them
she
off.
does. Yeah.
I'm like, but you can't tell her that. You can't say, Mom, you run contractors off.
Well, there's a common denominator. What's
I
the
know.
common denominator?
I've tried. I've tried to throw the math out. Like,
Well, maybe she'll listen to this and she'll get some insight.
my dad will listen to it first, and he's gonna be like, "Oh shit, don't tell your mom."
Accidentally have it playing loud.
I've always thought that though. I was like, Mom, this has got to be, because it's, for Misty and I, we're not like that. We're just very hands off. I'm even more hands off. Where I'm like, does it work? Is it good? Because to me, and I'm sure you guys have been through this thousands of times. It's a rental property, so this person that's moving in is thinking it's the best thing. They're like, it's an upgrade to them, and even if it's not Martha Stewart perfect to them, they were living in a shithole, and now they're moving to this. They're like, man, this is awesome. So they don't really care.
Yeah.
So versus like my mom is the other way around. It's Martha Stewart trying to fix a rental home. It just doesn't work out. Man.
No, and the thing kind of to parlay that conversation is a lot of our clients, we try to make them, because they are buying them with hard money and they're going to refinance out.
Mm-hmm.
So they do look like a retail flip
Right.
when we're done. And people get confused a lot and they say, oh, well, it's just a rental. Just make it a rental. It's okay. It's a rental that we're going to be refinancing out of, though. So we need to appraise as high as possible. We need to look like the competition that is reselling homes. So there really isn't, in this market that we're in now, there's really not a rental versus retail make ready.
Yeah.
If you're doing hard money. Now, if you're buying, I've got clients that buy and hold that are all cash, and they just buy it with cash. They sit on it. That's okay. Those typically are a little bit less of a finish out than the ones that are going to be trying to refinance them.
Yeah, they're not trying to make it. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to make it, to make it like, to make it more,
There's
like
different levels.
Yeah, there's different levels. The level with my mom is just the walking behind you with the caulk. You know what I mean?
So
No
what
level.
we would do with her is when we do the walkthrough, like with the blue tape,
yeah.
we would give her a strip about that far and tell her that's all she gets. We pull the
Use
tape
it
off,
sparingly.
tear the roll, and then go back and put the roll in the truck and go, there's your blue tape, go.
Oh, she's gonna bring her own tape,
Then we'll ask her to leave it in the car.
plastic and everything. Oh, some people are getting some insight of my mom. Sorry, Mom. I love you, Mom, but yeah, definitely stuff challenges we've had to go through over time. We're like, oh, something I want to touch back on. And I know it's kind of stepping back is the confidence. You mentioned, you've talked about that. Kind of what advice would you give to somebody? Because that's something that I think is important that most people kind of skip over. They don't, whether it's, that confidence to go, I don't know. I feel the same way with a lot of stuff. I'm like, I don't really know it, but I'm going to figure it out. How would you explain that, or give some advice to someone who's maybe just doesn't have that, or, what would that look like?
I don't want to say if you got it, either you got it or you don't, but there is probably part of that in there. I think it's probably maybe an entrepreneurial spirit that kind of clouds your judgment and almost impedes it, and it's not there. Your ability to go, what am I thinking? I need to really rethink that.
Yeah.
I just react. I just do it, and then we'll figure it out. Damn, that didn't work at all.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get analysis and paralysis. is they sit there and think about it too much and think about, well, what if I take this angle and what if I go that angle? You're not going to go if you don't go. You
Mm-hmm.
got to just. And for me, I think for me personally, I really didn't have anything to lose. I didn't have anything to gain.
Yeah.
I mean, I had nothing to lose, I guess, and everything to gain. So I was just
Go game.
yeah.
Just do it. Go figure it out. Do you find, I know I've struggled with this, and I don't know if you've had this, just that entrepreneurial spirit that sometimes you ever look at your team and you're like, why the fuck don't you have that? Just go get it. Like, and you kind of, does that make sense? Like they kind of like you're
They
like,
all do.
yeah.
They all don't. But that's part of the problem is you have to surround yourself, I mean, ideally you want to surround yourself with people that are smarter and better than you. That's the
Mhm.
goal, right? Because you rise up to that. But you are going to have that in your team that they just don't get it, And one of the biggest things that I have a couple in specifically that I constantly am trying to browbeat into them that they're reactive and not proactive. And that's the biggest problem for me in business is being reactive. You wait for it to happen. You wait for the problem and then try to solve it. Well, let's try to solve it before it becomes a problem.
Mhm.
Let's have that awkward conversation with the customer because I know your sewer's trash and I know it's going to have to be replaced.
Yeah.
So we have two conversations. We either wait and let this marinate over 2 to 3 weeks and deal with it and let this thing fester, or we just go straight to it and go, here's the problem. It's trash. It's going to cost X amount of dollars to fix it. I'm willing to go through the motions to make you feel good and give you a warm fuzzy. But the reality is after 2 weeks of warm fuzzies, we're going to have the same result.
Hmm.
Which one do you want? And having those real awkward conversations usually become proactive as opposed to reactive. And that's another one. I use that a lot within my organization and sense of urgency.
Mhm.
Is probably the other. There's no sense of urgency. If you tell me to do something, I'm probably doing it while you're telling me to do it. Like I'm already on the phone taking care of that email or sending that customer that message while we're having the conversation. But I think that comes from having a world-class level of ADD that allows me to be able to just hyper-focus on all this stuff and just compartmentalize these things and just boom, knock them out. And just keep them going.
Yeah.
And allows me to have so much more, like the more I process, the better I am at it. If that
Mhm.
makes sense. The more chaos, the better I strive.
Yeah.
When things are slow and it's not really going, that's when my mind really starts to wander. But when there's like 10 different things coming at me, my mind is running really hard and fast. And it's like, hell yeah, we're getting this done.
Yeah.
So
She's laughing because she's looking at me going,
That's him.
when it's slow, you're like,
the idle mind, man. It's the devil's playground.
what do I do?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I start offloading a lot of stuff on myself lately, and I'm like, it's kind of sitting around like, I just got to do more jujitsu. I don't know what else to do.
So what I find myself doing is I do projects
Yeah.
like around the house. Like I built a pizza oven,
Mm.
like a full blown 8 foot tall, 7 foot wide pizza oven with a big dome on the inside and everything.
Damn. That's what get a pizza oven, miss. Yeah, I'm gonna be busy. When did you start taking yourself out of the business per se? Less working in the business and more on the business. When did that stuff kind of come about more?
I don't know that there was a pinnacle moment where I can say that because what I was doing, there for a while I had about 10 to 12 guys that were working for me and I was working alongside them.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd be up on the roof, framing the roofs and, cutting the rafters and putting on the shingles or running the electrical, doing all that right next to them. Then around noon, I'd cut out and go bid another job for a customer, or if a customer would come by the house and say, hey, I got another one coming up. You want to go look at it? I would leave. And then I guess at some point obviously there was a shift, and I gave a couple of guys the lead role of, hey, I'm going to be gone. Yeah, that's a weird question, man. I don't really know.
Did you feel like, hey, it was time, just to slowly,
I've never even thought
back
about
out?
this.
Or it just naturally happened?
They're able to survive pretty well without you being there all the time.
Shit, I don't know. I guess I just looked up one day and was like, all of a sudden my collared shirts were on. I I didn't have the tool belt, and I was like, "What the hell happened?"
Were you walking out the door and your wife was just handing you a collared shirt?
More than likely that sounds.
She's like, hey, Blake, just put this on. Stop. No, go back.
Stop washing the t-shirt.
Put the lunch pail up, Blake.
I think you're probably hit it right on the head. She probably showed up one day. I still have the shirt. I don't remember how it happened, but it was a collared shirt. She went out and got 3 embroidered with different. It wasn't this because the hammer is a whole nother conversation. But I don't know, man. I just looked up one day and I guess I kind of had evolved and they were okay for the day. But I think what happened more than likely is I got so busy bidding jobs that it just naturally was kind of like, hey, dude, I'm going to be gone today. So this is what you've got to get done. Here's the list. You got to get it done. I'm going to be out looking at these other jobs, and we're actually starting to get busy.
Yeah.
And because, I remember being on jobs before where, everybody would, it's so weird on job sites. Everybody shows up to work, and then they leave to go get breakfast. And then they come back and eat breakfast, and then they start. And it's like, what did we miss here? Like, how did we show up? Everybody at, 7:30, 8 o'clock, everybody rolls out of their cars, stretches their legs, stands out and talks for a few minutes. And then either one of them or all of them will go get breakfast, bring it back and eat breakfast and then start. And it's like, okay. So I remember this very vividly. I remember going, this shit doesn't work, man. So what I started doing is bringing a turkey fryer and a skillet and a dozen eggs, tortillas and cheese and bacon every morning. And they'd all show up and I'd just start cooking. You guys go and get to work. I'll let you know when breakfast is ready. And I literally would cook breakfast 5 days a week for all 12 of them. But it kept them on the job.
Yeah.
Otherwise this was a routine every day. And it was like, this is crazy to me.
From contractor to business owner to chef. Chef Blake on the job. Cooking it up. You still do that? Where's your next job? That sounds really good. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's a weird question. At what point did it transition? I don't know. I'd have to ask Harvey. Harvey's been with me for now 24 years. So he's been with me. I fired him 3 times and he keeps coming back and he's been around a long time, man.
He just keeps coming back.
I think he's one of those guys that if we ever did part ways permanently, like he'd still show up. He wouldn't know where to go.
I'm here.
So is he the one that joined you when you weren't making any money?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's one of the 2. Yeah.
That's what it is right there. Yeah. He's been around so long.
He's been around a long time, man. Me and him have been together a long time.
That's awesome. I asked that question about, when you kind of let go, because I think about my own experiences. I've finally got to let go these last few years, but for years,
let go of jujitsu?
No, just of having to run being in the business and be more working on the business. And that's something that's been a big deal for me. And I just have friends that own businesses, and sometimes you're like, it's like they started their dream job, but it was their dream job, and they never actually fully made like the jump where you're at, where you're like, it's not a job for you anymore. You love what you do, but you enjoy it, but it's not. But it became more of like I have to show up versus where, they can just say, hey, you know what? I have a team that can handle that. I don't have to be a part of that.
Right.
And so that's why I asked that. And after doing it for 25 years, you've built yourself to a point where you have individuals that can do those things for you.
Right.
And so that's why I asked that question, because that's something that took me years to experience where, but I kind of knew I was like, I'm done. I want out. I want to be able to focus on this and less on that. And that's why I asked, at what point was it a burnout or was it just a natural? And it sounds like it was just natural.
I think it was natural progression. I've really never, I say this and know somebody else may argue different. I don't know that I've ever really burned out on this job. Yeah. I've got tired of maybe smelling shitty houses.
Yeah.
Like last week I had 5 in a row and it was just like, my God, this is getting old.
Right,
every damn one of these houses stinks and smells like crap and it's just disgusting. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I don't think I really, the tightest I've ever been of this job was probably during the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hardest part. Yeah. Other than that, I've done it so long, it's kind of like riding a bike almost.
Yeah.
I just kind of do it.
To me, burnout's not necessarily going to be where it's like, I hate what I'm doing, but maybe a certain part of it, you're like, okay, I'm no longer beneficial here. I need to leave. I need to move to the next stage. Like you said, you were like, all right, I'm not beneficial. Maybe it was, hey, I'm not beneficial here. doing the electrical and stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm not beneficial running a nail gun.
Yeah, right. It was doing all the bids. That's where your strong point was, and
Right.
that's when the wife hands you a shirt and says,
Things
to
have
work.
changed.
Yeah. So do you guys still work together? Is she still?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's behind the office.
That's cool.
Yeah, she's kind of behind the scenes, kind of running the books and marketing and doing different things. We recently, we bought a commercial building, rehabbed the whole thing,
Mhm.
and it's kind of her baby now. So we've moved in if Finishing Touches has an office in there.
Mhm.
Longhorn Hard Money has an office in there. There's a property management company that has an office in there. There's a wholesaler and a wholesaler and a media company that have taken up offices in there. So this building has kind of evolved into a real estate type of conglomeration,
Mhm.
and we're trying to get title company in there too. So she's kind of spearheading that whole thing. So that's kind of her between the Finishing Touches, kind of the bookkeeping side of it, and then spearheading this whole new adventure for us is kind of her thing.
That's cool. So you have your own real estate
Empire.
empire in one building.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's got their own office, and then there's a conference room in the middle, and we're going to start doing events there.
Okay.
Like they're going to be evening mixers.
Yeah.
And they're just going to be we're going to open the door, have it catered by the Mexican Inn in Fort Worth, and just be
That's awesome. Where are you guys' office? Where's your office at?
off of Lancaster and Beach Street.
Okay. All right. I know that area. Yeah, we're South Fort Worth, so that's where we're at. So cool, man. Well, let me ask this, just kind of before we wrap up, any advice you'd want to give anybody, anything you'd want to say, hey, this is, just all your years of experience, of whether it's, running a business or growing a business, scaling a business, or even just contracting, or just maybe to an investor, what would you say to somebody that, something that
Well, to contractors, I would say don't be scared to fire your clients.
Yeah.
There's times when that needs to happen. Sounds like Mom's a good candidate.
Yes, she is.
That was a jab, by the way.
No, she is.
It is true. And, as a business person, you always look at it and go, I need business. I need sales. I need revenue. I have to deal with and then there's, you got to go with your gut. I think that's probably it. And then I'll answer that from an investor standpoint in a second. But, in business, contracting, any business, you got to go with your gut. There's times where you're having that conversation with that customer, or you're engaging them, and this is not going to go well. I just don't get a good vibe. We're not syncing, like our chemistry's off, and you still need that sale. I mean, I'm guilty. Don't get me wrong. I'm just as guilty. I'm guilty even here lately, but I've got a team behind me that goes, you know better. You know exactly what happened last time you went down that road. Don't let yourself go down that road. I'm like, okay, you're right, but we need sales. We don't need headaches. We need sales, but we also don't need headaches more than sales, because the headache will take 6 weeks worth of time and revenue as opposed to one good sale.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's probably for us. I mean, for a business perspective, is probably it, is go with your gut. And when it's not right, even though it may be $100,000 sale, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
I mean, I walked away from one just last week, and we were all teed up. We'd actually done our, excuse me, we'd done our pre-construction walkthrough. We'd met at the property twice. We've checked every box of what needs to be done. And then a couple of different emails and different things that came across my desk, and I called, this particular client, and we had a conversation, a very candid conversation, and it didn't feel well. It just didn't. I said, I got to be honest, I don't think we're a good fit. And I hate that, because we both invested time into this, but I think we're not a good fit for you. I think that there's people out there that'll serve you better and do you a better job than what we could do for you. And, they got a little upset because we'd put time into it. I was like, guys, we can either put time into it and not be a good fit, or we can both understand that, put our big boy pants on and go, we're not the best fit for you. And it was, they understood after the conversation, and they gave a couple of days. He called back and he was like, hey man, listen, I really appreciate, at the time it was a hard conversation to have with you, but hindsight being what it is, I definitely feel that was the right decision, because we did find the guy that we were looking for.
Yeah.
And basically cut to the chase, he wanted to be the general contractor.
Mm.
He basically wanted to have a couple of guys working under him, and he thought that I was going to allow him to tell me and my guys what to do at a general contractor level, meaning he wanted to show up every day and go, all right, guys, we're doing this today and this today and this. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way, dude.
Yeah.
Not at least for our operation. And you need to go out and find the people that you go out and find your own, I guess, subcontractors at that point, and do it yourself, as opposed to trying to hire me to do that for you to tell me what to do. Not only are you spending more money, but you're going to run me ragged and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then you guys won't do the best job. You'll do a good job, but you won't, your head's not in it. You're too busy with it's
Right.
too much of a headache.
Mhm.
You can make the same amount of money and help someone else.
Right.
And not have to be.
and that's our goal for us, is to help people. I really, truly care. And I want to help people build their financial future and their success in real estate. You know, one of the things I get the most excited about is I've got clients that we did houses for back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and they're still here. I'm going back now and rehabbing those houses again, and we're selling them now.
Yeah.
So I'm getting to dip twice into that. But these customers are, I mean, it's just such a cool experience for me to talk to, like, this guy named Rick. I did 8 houses for Rick in 2010. And there's another guy named Doug. And the list goes on and on. But these people they bought these homes, 50 cents on the dollar, and put like $25,000 into them, rented them for 10 to 12 years. And now they're turning around and selling it and walking away with $250,000 a house.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's exciting to me. Like, because it's cool, because, I was a part of it, and I just watched Doug sell 10 houses and walk away with $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
You were literally from soup to nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start to finish. You were the one that did the first rehab, did the last one, and you get to wave it goodbye.
Yeah.
As it goes to the next person.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, that's cool for the investors too, because I know, sometimes we hire contractors and then, within a couple of years they don't answer their phone anymore, or you can't get a hold of them.
Yeah.
And for them to reach out to you that many years later and you still be available and take on the job, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I was in a lady's house 5 days, it's probably about 10 days ago now. And she had a young little girl, which I was talking about the little girl and how cool kids are and all that stuff. And I said, well, how'd you hear about us? Because I always like to ask that, how did you hear? And she was like, I don't really know. And then she goes, well, I think my dad maybe a long time ago had mentioned you or something, or my brother. And I was like, who's your brother? I don't know the name. And then she said her dad's name. And I was like, yeah, I know him. Is he still alive? And she was like, yeah, he's still alive. I said, that's awesome. And we did work for him like 15 years ago at a house in Arlington. And she remembered the name and just looked us up. And it was just cool. It was cool to see that it's like, okay, I'm like second generation now. Like, this is happening. You know what I mean? It's weird.
Before you know it, you'll be a third generation.
Oh shit. And then I might get burned out.
Nope, you'll get another pizza oven.
Yeah, there you go. That'll keep me going. But it's definitely I get excited about the repeats, long-term repeats, that it's like because I'm one of those guys that's really kind of down to earth, in the sense, like, I bring my kids to work. My kids come to work with me a lot. So the people that were, when my kids were like this tall, trying to help me read a tape measure and like handing me the tablets and stuff, they see him now and they're like, oh my God, he's huge. Or look at your daughter. How cool is this? I've watched her go from here to here. And it's like,
How old are they now?
My son is 17 and my daughter is 15.
Do they have interest in getting in the business at all, or?
My daughter is wild. She's extremely feral. She's
He went from wild to feral. He's like, no. She's feral.
she's a lot like her dad. She really is, especially at that age. My son has a tendency to want to do business.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you it's real estate. And the last thing I'm going to do is try to push him into something.
Mm-hmm.
But he's considering a business degree of some level, which we'll see. He seems a little trying to figure out life right now.
Yeah. So your daughter's going to end up doing what
She will probably follow pretty close to dad's footsteps, I bet.
if it's not what you're doing now, it'll be something else. You'll be like, I didn't think she'd ever do that.
Yeah, but he's completely out in left field.
Left field, and she'll build it and scale it, and
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
you're like, wow.
Yeah, it will be of the two, she's probably the one that would follow more into this side than him. She's just crazy. She's just feral. It's true.
I love the description.
I've never heard anyone describe that way.
Yeah. The kid's feral.
And I say that with love, though.
No, I'm stealing that, man. I like that a lot. That's so funny. I've never, with Misty, I've never heard someone be like, yeah, I just have this image of a kid being like,
There you go.
It's like,
Yep, that too.
We live kind of in the country, so we have like feral dogs and cats and stuff
Sure.
like that. So and we're like you, like we don't have any animals in the house, but they just keep showing up. So like, oh yeah, when we hear feral, I'm thinking the cat on our roof, like,
Yeah, I live out in the country as well, and our German Shepherd that's been with us now 8 years just showed up on our driveway.
that was the coolest dog we ever had. Was a Belgian Malinois showed up.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
She spent 2 weeks at our gate, and we started after like week one, after like day 5, we started taking food down there, food and water. She'd been abused or something, I don't know. And then after about 2 weeks of her sleeping down by the gate, I guess she buried her demons and just decided that this was home and nobody's coming back for her. So she slowly walked up our driveway, which is a long driveway to get back to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then she came to the top of the driveway, and I was standing there in the garden doing stuff, and she walked up and just put her head on my lap and just kind of went, and now she won't leave my side. She literally everywhere I go.
That's awesome. We experienced the same thing. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Was she trained as far as like just basic commands and
She's
stuff? Or
broken.
did you kind of, yeah.
She's broken. You can call her. Half the time when you call her, she'll come. The other time she kind of cowers down like she's in trouble.
Yeah.
But she usually is in trouble because she's the one that gets in the trash.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a Belgian Malinois show up to the property
Right after the freeze.
after freeze.
And
And
same thing, we left it down by the gate and we're like, where's this random dog? And
I was
we
scared.
actually went to Mexico for a few days, came back and he was
It's
still
still
there.
just decided, yeah. And,
That's home.
But had clear protection training, had clear
Yes.
obedience training. Like somebody trained that dog very well. And so you just couldn't get to the house. The dog would bite. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's cool.
The dog actually bit a few people, bit my brother. But and we were like, cool, like, all right. It looks
But
like
not its core family.
but it's core family, it
Yeah.
stuck. So yeah, we've had that experience several times, and then the feral animal that shows up. So when I hear you say your daughter's feral, I'm thinking the feral cat. Well, I love it, man. How can anyone? I mean, if you want to throw out your website, or how anybody get a hold of you guys if they're like, hey, we need to get a hold of Finishing Touches, how can they do that?
They just reach out on a phone, 817-451-6565, or go to the website, which is finishingtouchesremodeling.com.
Cool.
That's it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. We appreciate it. And of course, guys, if you guys need Finishing Touches, you know where to catch them. And that's the show. Catch you guys next time.
See you.